tell you how this kind of happened. It was about a year ago, and Jim and I were in the Happy Days Patio, and he was telling me about how he was hoping to cover diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he asked if I thought Marathon would be willing to share our journey. I'd been with Marathon for about 6 months, but I already knew there was only one person that I needed to speak to, and that was Heidi De La Cruz. And I told Jed, the only reason I will is if you let me introduce him. And that's for 2 reasons. One is entirely selfish. I have to be honest. Finley's a great community, but I miss Lima. So any reason I can come back here, I'm totally in. But the second reason is that I know that Heidi is not going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. He tends to be a little bit humble. Heidi is synonymous with diversity, equity, and inclusion at Marathon. Under his leadership, all 6 Marathon employee networks were established. He also led these programs during the most defining moments in Marathon's history. In 2018, Marathon acquired Endeavor Logistics to become the largest refiner in America. The integration of 2 companies, no matter how complementary, can be challenging. Aligning views, philosophies, direction, building consensus, all of the things. With Heidi at the helm, a clear vision and forward-thinking strategy was defined for diversity, inclusion, and equity, which will set a course for Marathon success many years in the future. Currently, Heidi De La Cruz serves as the Human Resource Director for midstream operations. He's been with the company for 22 years and has held a variety of different roles. Currently, he continues to serve on the corporate emergency response team for the past, what seems like forever, as he supported Marathon's response to the pandemic. We're kind of battled like these other bad, I think that's how we know. Heidi graduated magna cum laude from Marysville University in St. Louis with a degree in poli-sci and minors in philosophy and sociology. At Maryville, Heidi co-captained the men's soccer team and is now a member of the University Hall of Fame. He attended law school at Ohio Northern University, where he served on the law review and graduated with high distinction, ranked 3rd in his class. He was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, but has also lived in Missouri, Minnesota, and Louisiana. Heidi and his wife Elizabeth have been married for 24 years and have 3 children, Penny, Cross, and Dallas. Heidi is committed to community outreach and volunteerism. He currently serves as board chair for the Focused Recovery and Wellness community and as a board member for the Findlay Hancock County YMCA. So I am very happy to introduce Heidi De La Cruz.
Thank you, Amy. Hey, good morning, everybody. All right, let's talk diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let me start off with a little exercise here, and please feel free to participate if you're comfortable doing so. If not, you don't have to. I'm going to ask a question outline that applies to you. You can raise your. I have my phone here, so just in case I go long, I tend to go long, so hopefully I don't. But let's start. So please raise your hand if you were born and raised in Allen County. All right. Please raise your hand if you were not born and raised here in Allen County. Raise your hand if you live in a different state other than Ohio. Okay. Raise your hand if you have children. Raise your hand if you have grandchildren. Raise your hand if you love to vacation in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now raise your hand if Las Vegas is the last place you want to be. Raise your hand if you serve in our armed forces. Round of applause and thank you for your service. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is you can look at all the people that raise their hand in different arms. There's diversity in this room. There's tremendous diversity in this room. The first thing when we talk about diversity that I like to get across is it applies to all of us. Right? We are all included. No one is excluded. I think sometimes when folks talk about diversity, people think, well, it's about certain groups of people, right? Because what it is about certain groups of people, but it's about all groups of people, right? When you try to get buy-in for diversity, the very first thing we have to establish is that everyone is impacted and everyone can benefit. All right? Everyone can benefit from diversity. It's the business case. We're going to talk about that. But I have one more question. And for those who can't see, I'm wearing a pink tie. It's got the little San Antonio Spurs emblem on it. But I'm going to ask a question. You can raise your hand. In fact, for this one, maybe applause, not raise your hand. Okay? You can clap. You root really hard for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Okay? So why say go Eagles? All right. That was one. I'm going to go diversity. Talk about diversity includes everyone. Now let's talk about inclusion. Okay? What if I told you? And let's just kind of play pretend for a little bit. Let's say that you had your dream job in sight. All right? And you fixed up your resume, you put it in, and they called you up. So you come in for an interview, you go in for the interview, you do great, you knock it out of the park. Sure enough, a couple hours later, they call you up. And I'm like, hey, I'm really impressed. We're going to give you the job. We're going to give you the job. And you're like, doing your happy dance. And then they say, hey, one thing though, and it's not a big deal, but one thing here at our company, I really like the Wolverines. We love Michigan. So much that you got to wear a Michigan jersey every day. You got to wear it. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. And hey, look, if you don't root for the Wolverines, no big deal. But just wear it anyway. All right? It's kind of our thing. And so in your mind, you're like, what do I do? It's my dream job. Everything's right about it. All right? Except I got to wear this jersey. And it's not who I am. Some of you might say, I'm going to try it out. What the heck? I'm going to try it out. The job's too good. I got it. Give it a shot. Go in there. You got your Michigan jersey on. Right? You're not yourself. And every second of the day, you're wearing that jersey. Right? Because it's not reflective of who you are. And the first day comes and goes, and then the next day, and then the next day. At some point, you wear out. All right? And at some point, through no fault of your own, and you're not trying, but at some point, your performance may be this. All right? Because it's just not who you are. And you start wondering, gosh, am I even valued for who I am? And when you get in that spot, you think about that every second of the day. All right? Start clock watching. You start thinking, gosh, how many more hours do I have today? How many more hours in the week? Is it Friday yet? All right? Now contrast that. You're at a job where you're valued for who you are. You don't have to wear a jersey for a team that you don't root for. You can wear the jersey for the team you do root for. You feel good about yourself because you're not trying to fit some other profile. Right? You just go be yourself. What's that look like? All right? What's your productivity look like in that environment? Right? And when you have a job that you really don't like, you really don't feel you're valued, boss gives you 3 things to do, and guess what? You take all day to do all 3 things. All right? You're in a job that you love. You're in a job where you're valued for who you are. Boss gives you 3 things. You're not going out by 10 o'clock. You're back in the boss's office. Like, what else you got? Right? In fact, I have a couple of ideas of some things we can do. That's the business case for diversity, right? And the jersey story, that's kind of like a little fun thing I like to start with. But I want you to imagine, and I want you to ask the question, do I have members on my team right now that kind of feel like they can't be themselves anymore? I kind of feel like they might have to, act a certain way just so they can fit in. But it's really not who they are. Right? I have people on my team that kind of feel that way. And if I do, what can I do about it? Because if that's the case, at some point, their performance is not going to be the way it could be. Right? So it's in your interest. And it's in their interest. So think about that, right? Think about that. Think about what would a team look like if everyone felt, if everyone on your team showed up to work thinking that would be going, all right? And I feel like knocking it out of the park today for my boss and for my team because I feel good about coming in to work. I feel good about coming into the organization, right? Hey, sometimes as leaders, we take all that for granted. Sometimes as leaders, we're like, hey, you got a job, you get paid, come and do your job, come and do your work, right? But we know it's not that easy, right? It's not that simple. So what do we want to do, right? What do we want to do to improve our team performance? How do we want to chart our path forward? The very first thing I would say, and I share this with all of our leaders, is don't delegate this task, right? These are your team members. These folks work for you, right? Take an active role in who they are. Right? Does everyone familiar with the golden rule? Right? Golden rule is a good rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Does anyone know about the platinum rule? Treat others the way they want to be treated, right? Because we're all different. We're all different, right? So if I came up to you and said, hey, look, this is kind of how I think and how I'm motivated, and I'm going to treat you the way that I would want to be treated, that may or may not work, right? Hey, if you're wired like me, that's going to work. For everyone else, that's not going to work, right? So as leaders, know and be aware that you have members of your team that are all different, right? And so what you want to be able to do is learn about your team, learn about your team members, learn what motivates them, learn what doesn't motivate them, right? And act accordingly. And it could be real simple. Let's talk recognition. Everybody likes recognition, right? We all like recognition in some form or fashion. But how do we like recognition? All right? There are some people, maybe raise your hand, if you like recognition, kind of like hey, don't make a big deal about it. Tell me good job. That's good enough for me. Off to the side. There are folks like that. Yeah. What about on the other side? They're like, no, hey, you make a big deal about that. That kind of makes me feel good, right? And if you could, I don't know, maybe announce it to the group, hey, you did a good job, or send an email to my boss, something like that. There's folks like that, right? Hey, if you have somebody that likes to understand your recognition, and you come, they did a good job, and you give them the recognition, bells and whistles, right? You make them feel like, make them feel good, right? You gotta make them feel fun. Whatever they did to get their recognition, they may not want to do that because that's not who they are, right? So just know that. So a couple of things. One, firstly, it's not all of us, right? Inclusion takes work. Inclusion doesn't just happen. We talk about equity. What is equity? Equity is fairness. Fairness and opportunity, right? Fairness in everything that we do as an organization. Ensure that your policies are equitable, your practices are equitable, right? Have to have one about that, right? The number one thing, though, is just pay attention to your team. See when they are engaged, see when they are aligned, and find out, and see when they're not, right? I will tell you this, over the course of my career in America, 22 years, I've worked in Finley for 3 times, but I've worked in refinery in Minnesota, refinery here. I've come across a lot of teams, right? A lot of teams. And the number one differentiator between a team that performs well and a team that doesn't perform well is the leader. It's the leader. And it's the leader in tune to the employees, right? Can the employees rally around the leader? The employees will rally around the leader when they feel the leader rally around the leader. They're not a number, right? But they make a difference. That's all the difference in life. Don't delegate that responsibility. That's our responsibility as leaders. Don't put off that responsibility. Go do it now. I would come across leaders and say, hey, I really love the diversity talk. That's really cool. We're going to jump into it like next year. We're going to jump into diversity. No, jump into it now, like right now. Your team needs it right now, right? Have to have it right. Okay, Amy asked me for, she asked me to provide an example of where the business case for diversity. Right? And I do want to provide an example. I do want to share this. Once you realize that diversity impacts you, and it impacts your team, once you realize that the more inclusive we are, the higher we perform as a team, right? I want you to get creative, right? I want you to start expanding. Because when we talk about diversity, as I said, talk about everybody. So there's you and there's your team, but then start expanding. You know, who else can we bring to the team, right? You know, because from different backgrounds and different ideas and diversity of thought, guess what? We get better. Ideas are in the room and bouncing off of each other. We're building on ideas, we're building better solutions, and we're becoming a better organization, right? So get creative and say, who's not represented in the room, right? Where am I? If I'm looking at the room in your offices, right? And say, diversity is good, it's working here, okay? What happens if we bring in more veterans? What happens if we bring in more persons of color? What happens if we bring in persons who are disabled? What happens if we bring in folks in the LGBTQ plus community? And now we have all those ideas, we have those perspectives, and we're bouncing ideas off each other in a real positive way. And what's possible, right? What's possible if our organization and our team is more reflective of the customers we serve? We can better connect with those customers, right? We can better connect with those customers. We can be more successful as a business. I'm gonna go back about 4 years. I got a call. I was at my son's football game. We were playing up into the somewhere. Amy mentioned I'm on the corporate emergency response team, so I get this call, and it basically said, "Hey, we've got a product release in Chicago, one of our Speedway stores, one of the underground storage things that we released," and it turned out to be pretty significant. And it basically the call said you're on standby. So what happened was the very next morning, 7 a.m. I'm on a flight going out to Chicago. And I get there, and we learned that, yeah, we had a big release, and yeah, there was impact, and the impact of the complex. That complex had about 400 units. Every single one of the units was impacted because we had to relocate them for at least one night. For a subset of the residents, they were relocated for far longer than just one night, right? And so what do? Right? We want to be a responsive company. We want to be not defined by the incident, but defined by our response and our values, and we're going to make this right. So what do? We follow the golden rule, right? What would we want? We would want swift action. Let's go knock on doors. Let's go set up a claims line. Let's set up a claims office. Let's set up a flyer. Let's start putting flyers on doors, right? And that's what people want, because that's what we would want. Guess what? This condominium complex is predominantly populated by folks from Eastern European countries, right? And culturally speaking, that was not the right thing to do. And we didn't know that. Okay? Nobody was calling our claims line. Nobody was coming into our office. We wanted to make it right? And we could not make that connection. In fact, they were saying, if you could please stop doing what you're doing, right? That's what we were asked to do. So we're brainstorming, and we said, you know what? We finally figured out we are talking literally 2 different languages, right? What we think is a good thing, the residents think is a bad thing. But we don't know how to connect with them. And then somebody raised their hand and said, you know, I have a team member that's actually from Montenegro. And she might have insight to how to make that connection. And we said, let's bring her in, let's talk to her. We brought her in, okay? And we told her what we were doing. And she said, yeah, you need to stop now. You know, this is a group that's very reserved, okay? This is a group that kind of stays to themselves, right? This is a group that has trust issues. And not only do you impact it, but now you're banging on their door. Now you're invading their private space. Do it a different way, right? Let them know you're going to be at a certain place, and she volunteered to be at a certain place, and let them come. And sure enough, we did that. 1, 2, and then the next day, more, and then the next day, one day, we all came in, right? And our person that was talking to him said, hey, you know what? This is silly. We're in a parking lot. We actually have an office. Let's go to the office. Go to the office. And we make that connection. We get the claims taken care of, right? And not only that, but the people that we impact, the people that we displace, the people that we were trying to have a really tough time connecting, signed up for our Speedy Rewards funds. All of them, you know? And it was just about diversity and inclusion. That's all it was. Hey, we were not connecting with them because we weren't following the plan, right? But once we started following the plan, they felt respected. They felt like, okay, we're going to be equals about this. And then we were able to have dialogue. When our people, our team members reflected the customer, we made that connection and we were able to have a successful result. All right. And then the last personal example I'll share is me. Okay. Born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. Lived in San Antonio, went to undergrad in St. Louis. Then I'm coming to law school at ONU in Ada, Ohio. And I can remember my wife and I driving, we drove to Lima, we headed out to Ada. And I can remember us thinking, like, oh my gosh, this is so different than any place we've ever lived. And I can remember thinking, I don't see anyone that looks like me. And I can remember thinking, like, should we go? Should we just kind of turn around and go home, go somewhere else? You know, we really had that conversation. And we didn't, and I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did. That was 1997. It's been 24 years. This has been home base. ONU was a great school, great to me. I'm on their alumni board now. My son is now a freshman at ONU. My buddy Will here, law school buddy. We are, you know, he's. We like to tell mostly true stories. There's some false stories in there that, about who carried who through law school. But let me tell you a story that's not false. It's absolutely true. The reason why we stayed at Ada in ONU, because I could have transferred out after the first year, was because of that inclusive environment. You know, the community opened their arms for us. You know, Will and his family did. So much so that my daughter thought that Will's mom was her grandmother for the first 7 years of her life. Right? That's an inclusive environment. You know, my wife and I would spend Christmas mornings at the Waffle House on 81. Right? And everyone in that Waffle House treated us like family. It makes a difference. I got to film and I got to America, and again, no one looks like me. But the first thing in that law department that they did is they put their arm around me and they said, hey, you're kind of you're our team member now, right? And you know, I'm from Texas. I'm sitting there wearing slacks and boots, and they're like, yeah, you kind of dress funny, but you're still our guy, right? You're our guy, you know. And I never wanted to work for another company since. And I love coming back. You know, like I said, it's my third time in Finland, and in this area, my son's at ONU. This is home for us now, right? That's what inclusion does. That's what inclusion does, right? Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for the invitation to come here. Thank you for your interest and your desire, your commitment for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please know it is the secret sauce to making your organization run at higher levels, to achieve higher goals, right? Nothing about diversity, equity, and inclusion is more